Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Caffeinated Musings. In this episode, we're going to discuss something that many leaders struggle with: the power of silent leadership. This topic can also be challenging for employees as they may not always understand their managers and leaders who embody this characteristic. Now, let me tell you, this is a story that's got a little bit of everything: challenges, unexpected growth, and a whole lot of deep reflection. But before we dive into my first story, I want to make it clear that this is not meant to be a lecture about my own journey. I genuinely believe in the value of continuous learning, and I don't like to box myself or anyone else into specific labels or characteristics. However, for this episode in specific, I thought it might be worthwhile to share some personal stories that are relevant to the subtopics of our main subject today, to help put things into perspective and help you envision what I'm trying to say with real-life examples. To kick things off, let's start with how my own journey started. What started out as a passion project, something I was genuinely excited about, suddenly began scaling faster than I could have ever imagined. Before I knew it, I found myself leading a full-on company, complete with employees, clients, projects, responsibilities, billing. And I honestly wasn't ready for that at first. It was during those moments, the times I was almost overwhelmed by everything, and most of it very new, that I began to discover a different kind of leadership within me. A leadership that wasn't about being loud or commanding every room. Instead, it was about staying true to who I am, someone who values listening deeply, connecting authentically, and guiding others with a steady, quiet confidence. And I have to be honest, I was genuinely surprised by this. One, because I had never led a big team, let alone a full-on company prior to that. I was learning on the go, and it was an experience that made me adapt and grow very quickly. And two, because my natural character is quite different. I'm that person who loves to laugh, jump around, bring a lot of energy into a room. So finding this quieter leadership style within myself was unexpected, but also incredibly empowering. Again, this is not about me. This is about exploring the value that this kind of strategic silent leadership brings to the table. I think many of us, especially those who might not see themselves as a traditional macho leader, quote unquote, have a lot to offer, more than we may even realize. And today, I want us to celebrate those strengths and see how impactful they can be. So what exactly is a silent leader? It's not just about being quiet or introverted. It's about strategic presence. The kind of leader who doesn't need to be the loudest in the room to make a lasting impact. Let's break down some of the key elements that make silent leadership so powerful. Elements that I believe have allowed me to build my company successfully and create an environment where people could actually thrive. First up, let's talk about deep listening and empathy. Silent leaders are often exceptional at reading between the lines, not just hearing, but truly listening. You know that moment when a team member is struggling with something and they don't outright say it, but you can tell something's off? This ability to notice the unspoken has allowed me to understand what my clients needed, even when they weren't entirely sure how to express it. Employees as well. That's when the magic happens, when you can support someone in ways they didn't even know they needed. I want to take a moment to expand on deep listening and what it truly entails in a leadership role. Many times people underestimate the power of just being there for someone and listening without interrupting or rushing to provide a solution. And to be honest, I'm guilty of that sometimes. But in my experience, team members often value that space where they can voice their concerns freely. Deep listening does not just mean being physically present. It means being mentally and emotionally present as well. It's showing that you are there for them, that you are genuinely interested in what they have to say. This not only builds trust, but also fosters a culture where everyone feels comfortable coming forward with their ideas and challenges. There is also the element of supportive silence, a type of silence that communicates, "I'm here and I support you," without really needing to say a word. During many team meetings, I've often sat quietly and listened, allowing my team members to take the lead, sometimes argue, sometimes discuss, and sometimes things go well. This kind of supportive silence shows that you believe in their capabilities. You believe in them to make things right. It's subtle, but it speaks volumes. Sometimes just by being the one who doesn't rush to speak, you empower others to find their own voice. Empathy, one of my favorite words, too plays a huge role in silent leadership. Empathy is not just about understanding someone's feelings, as we all think it is. It's about recognizing their potential in leadership, even when they don't see it in themselves. I remember a time when one of my team members was doubting their ability to lead a project. I know she had what it took, and instead of making a big deal out of it, I simply gave her the responsibility with my full confidence. Weeks later, she not only delivered but exceeded all my expectations. Now that is the power of empathy. Seeing beyond the current moment and empowering others to rise to the occasion. Another story that comes to mind is from when we were working on a particularly challenging and, let me say, strict client project. The client was being vague about their needs, as most of them always are, and it was causing frustration within the team. Instead of jumping in to mediate directly, I took a step back and focused on listening to both sides. The client, though he said little, needed more time and assurance, and my team needed clarity. By deeply listening to everyone involved, especially my team, I was able to communicate calmly and find a solution that satisfied all parties. This process built trust between the team and the client, and it showcased how empathy and silent leadership can ease tension and foster collaboration. Another key trait is measured decision-making. I often found myself making decisions that others might have rushed through, but I preferred always to step back and think them through. I took time for deep reflection and ensured I had backup plans to keep things steady. Because let's be real, scaling a company is filled with surprises, even scaling a department or whatever big project you're working on. Some surprises are more pleasant than others. Silent leaders are not afraid to pause when needed. It's about knowing that sometimes patience is your biggest ally. Measured decision-making also ties into having a backup plan. I cannot tell you how many times I had plan A did not work, and because of the way we approached things as a team, I always made sure that there was a plan B and even sometimes a plan C ready. This is something that gave my team confidence. They knew that if things did not go as expected, we were still prepared. This kind of stability is a cornerstone of silent leadership. It shows that you are thinking ahead, not just reacting in the moment. Now, I often think about the time when we were expanding our services. It was a significant step that came with a lot of risk. Our reputation was on the line. My first instinct was to dive right in, but I did hold back, wanting to weigh every possible outcome. I sought input from my team and sometimes even from special clients, engaged in long discussions, and allowed myself the time to sleep on it. The decision we eventually made was better because it was collective and it took into consideration different perspectives. And it is hard. It is much harder saying than doing, by the way. Carpenters have a rule they live by. Measure twice, cut once. But if you think of it, it does not only apply to carpenters. It's advice for anyone in a leadership role. Silent leaders by nature tend to take their time to ensure that actions taken are well thought of. This type of careful consideration not only leads to better outcomes, but also instills a sense of confidence within the team. They know decisions are not made impulsively, but rather with a full understanding of potential outcomes and consequences. Now, here's a point worth mentioning. There are some individuals who declare themselves as silent leaders, a trait that ironically says too much about them just by declaring it. Often, these self-proclaimed silent leaders tend to avoid making decisions or shy away from conflict under the guise of being strategic silent leaders. It's important to remember that genuine silent leadership is not about avoiding responsibility. It is about making thoughtful decisions while being fully present, even if that means embracing difficult conversations or conflicts. The secret ingredient here is emotional intelligence. Let's now move on to empowering others without making it about personal glory. In our company, we always celebrated the successes of the team, and that was one of my best moments, by the way. It wasn't about whose idea it was or who deserved individual credit, although we made sure that whoever deserved it did receive it. But the big wins were collective, when everyone felt like they owned a part of the outcome. They also felt valued and recognized. And let me tell you, that's one of the most rewarding aspects of this type of leadership. Seeing others grow and happy and celebrate and succeed is an unparalleled feeling. But empowerment also means giving others space to fail. Now, this may sound counterintuitive, but real growth comes from making mistakes and learning from them. I remember a project where one of our junior team members, I believe she was maybe 1 or 2 months into the job, made an error that cost us a few days of work. Instead of pointing fingers, we turned it into a learning moment. I told them, mistakes happen. What's important is how we recover and what we learn. And that was not just a lecture, by the way, because what good would any other action help? The atmosphere that followed what I did was not one of blame, but also one of resilience. Silent leaders do not just celebrate success. They help their teams navigate failure without losing momentum. This makes me think of the classic saying, give a person a fish and they will eat for a day, teach them to fish and they will eat for a lifetime. Empowering others means giving them the tools and confidence to succeed on their own. It means celebrating not just the end result, but the entire learning journey and process, including the missteps along the way. I've always seen empowerment as a way to create more leaders. And it's true. Imagine if you're not just leading followers, but growing the next generation of leaders. When you empower people around you, they begin to develop their own leadership skills. I've seen team members take on responsibilities that were once daunting to them, all because they were given the space to learn, fail, and eventually succeed. Strategic thinking as a silent leader also means knowing when to speak and when to stay silent. There is an art to silence. Knowing that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let others have the floor. I often watched as my team worked through problems, only stepping in if I felt they truly needed guidance. And more often than not, they found the solutions themselves. This allowed them to grow in their roles and become more confident in their abilities. This also means embracing authenticity. I genuinely believe that leadership is about understanding people, not just driving them towards outcomes. It's about taking the time to see each individual, finding out what motivates them, and helping them reach their potential. And this is not just words, believe me. I can recall countless times when staying calm under pressure was exactly what the team needed. Not a big speech or flashy actions, but the reassurance that we were moving in the right direction together. Mahatma Gandhi once said, "In a gentle way, you can shake the world." I think that embodies silent leadership perfectly. It's about being impactful without needing to be forceful. When you are authentic, your influence grows naturally because people can see that you are genuine and have their best interest at heart. Silent leaders also bring stability to the table, especially during uncertain times. When things get chaotic, having that presence, that calm, strategic presence, can mean the difference between a team feeling lost and a team feeling focused. And I don't know about you, but I've always thought that being the kind of leader who can provide that stability, who can be a source of clarity and direction, is what really counts. Let's not forget that silent leaders are also filled with vision and passion. We may not be the loudest, but we are always thinking about our teams, our work, our clients, and our company ecosystem. There's a lot of energy behind the scenes, and it's often driven by a genuine desire to create something meaningful and lasting. Whether it's finding ways to motivate the team without needing to be at the center or ensuring the culture we're building is based on shared values, it's all about creating something greater than ourselves. One of my favorite examples of authentic leadership comes from a story about Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln was known for being calm under pressure and leading with empathy. During the American Civil War, he faced countless moments of crisis, and yet his leadership style remained consistent. He would often visit the troops personally, listen to their concerns, and offer words of encouragement. His authenticity was not about fiery speeches. It was about genuinely caring for the people he led. One of the things I found most helpful as a silent leader was learning how to navigate collaborations between different types of personalities. Especially for extroverted team members, I learned to balance how we work together. As a silent leader, I wasn't always the one to speak first in meetings, but I made sure everyone had space to share their ideas, especially the more outspoken individuals. And that balance, I found, created a more inclusive, creative environment overall. It's not just about managing extroverts either. Silent leaders need to understand how to work with fellow silent leaders. There is a special kind of connection when two strategic silent leaders work together. It's almost as if you both understand each other without needing a lot of words. I remember working with a client who was also the quiet leader type. We communicated through shared goals and understood each other's motivations instinctively. It was one of the smoothest partnerships I've ever experienced, and we are still very good friends. We both valued strategic action over empty talk. And I also want to touch on resilience, something that often goes hand in hand with silent leadership. Being a silent leader means you're sometimes underestimated, but you don't let that define you. Instead, you stay focused and let your actions do the talking. There were definitely moments in my journey when I felt overlooked, especially in spaces dominated by more, let's say, vocal personalities. But instead of trying to outdo them vocally, I focused on creating consistent, meaningful results. Over time, that resilience spoke louder than words ever could. I've learned that people will forget what you say. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Now, this is a quote by one of my favorites, Maya Angelou, and it has stayed with me throughout my leadership journey. It's not always about the grand gestures or the loud declarations, but it's about the small moments when you made someone feel heard, valued, and capable. Another important aspect of silent leadership is humility and patience. Silent leaders don't need to be the center of attention, as we said earlier. Humility allows them to step back and recognize that success is a collective effort. I often think of leadership as being similar to planting a garden. You plant the seeds, nurture them, and give them time to grow. You can't force a plant to grow faster by just shouting at it or constantly disturbing it. In the same way, a team needs nurturing and a space to develop at its own pace. Patience, too, is a virtue in leadership. I've seen how giving team members time to find their footing has led to some of the best ideas and most impactful contributions. There was a time when one of my new hires was struggling to adapt to our project. It took several weeks, longer than expected, but instead of rushing her or expressing frustration, I decided to give her time. Now, later on, she came back with an innovative approach that none of us had considered. Sometimes the best way forward is to allow things to progress organically. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this episode today, it's that silent leadership isn't about how much you say or how visibly you lead. It's about how you lead from within. It's about compassion, about consistency, about authenticity. It's about recognizing that there are many different ways to lead, and being quiet does not mean you cannot have an incredible impact. And to my fellow silent leaders out there, embrace your style. Understand that the power you bring lies in your strategic presence, your transparency, your authenticity, and in your deep care for the people around you. The world needs more leaders who lead with understanding and empathy, with compassion. And if that's your strength, then lean into it fully. Remember, the journey is not always easy. I don't think it's ever easy. There will be moments when you feel like you need to be louder to be heard. But trust me, your impact comes not from how much you speak, but from the quality of your actions, and the depth of your presence, and the passion to your work. Thank you so much for joining me today. If this episode resonated with you, or if you know someone who might benefit from hearing about the power of silent leadership, please share it with them. And of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. I would truly love to hear from you. I will catch you next Tuesday with a new episode of Caffeinated Musings.